Welcome to the Midlife Manifesto, where we are embracing the twists and turns and transformations of midlife. I am Arleen Scholten, your host and fellow traveler on this crazy journey. So if you're looking to reinvent yourself, rediscover your passions, or just make sense of this beautifully messy phase of your life, you're in the right place. I will be interviewing experts on a number of different topics, anything midlife, whether it be your health, wellness, perimenopause, relationships, rediscovering yourself, new adventures, career shifts, raising teenagers, you name it. We're going to discuss it all right here. So grab your favorite drink, settle in, and let's get real about midlife, because it's more than a phase. It's our time to thrive. We can do this together, so join me on my journey. It's crazy, but let's make it some fun. Hello, and welcome to the Midlife Manifesto podcast. I am your host, Arleen Scholten, and today I'd like to welcome a good friend of mine and fellow chiropractic colleague, Debbie Townsend, to the podcast today. So today we are going to be talking about all things midlife, and the focus today is on intermittent fasting. And both Debbie and I have gotten into intermittent fasting the girl way. So we both follow a woman called Dr. Mindy Pelz, who also funnily enough, she is also a chiropractor, I found out after I started with her. And so today we're going to dive in. So Debbie Townsend is a wellness chiropractor. So she practices in Harrogate in the UK. She is a lifestyle expert, a fasting coach now with Dr. Mindy Pelz, author of Get Off Your Iceberg, a mother of three, one of who is a chiropractor who was also my associate for a period of time. And she has an ever expanding career. Like many of us midlife, we're kind of looking and finding our feet and all the different things we can do in this next phase of life. So welcome to the podcast, Debbie.
Oh, thank you so much for inviting me.
Absolutely. So we both had our workout this morning. So you've been to Pilates, I believe, haven't you?
Yep. Yeah. Amazing. Yeah.
And I just want to mention, if you're watching this on YouTube and you can see Debbie, she is 58 years old and she looks absolutely amazing. So she's going to teach us her ways through fasting. So Debbie, if you just start and tell us how you found yourself into the world of fasting, kind of what got you here.
So I am a big foodie. Let's just start by saying that. So the idea of fasting was really not on my radar at all. I have spent 20 plus years of my career teaching people how to eat a healthy diet that then will lead on to their healthy lifestyle habits. And I was very, very much in that lane until menopause. And menopause hit me hard and fast, and I just didn't see it coming at all, and I literally dropped off a cliff, and 10 kilos of weight just went straight on me, boobs and tummy, and I was just mortified, and everything that I knew just stopped working. And it was that really that I've always had a really inquisitive mind. It's led me down all sorts of pathways through my career, and I knew I had to find a solution. I'm not anti-HRT, but I didn't want it to be my first thing that I reached for. So I went looking for answers. But honestly, it took me about 18 months, and I had a cupboard full of supplements. I was taking advice from lots of different people that have really helped me over the years, and nothing was quite working. And then I heard Mindy Pelz. I think it was a YouTube that I first heard of hers, and I was just like, hang on, maybe there's something to offer me here. And I just binge watched so many of her things, got her book, devoured that in a matter of days. She lays out very clearly a 30-day reset program, and I just dived straight in. Honestly, the brain clarity sort of came back. My weight just started to drop off. I started to sleep. I struggle with hot flushes. I still do a little bit. So if we manage to get through this whole podcast without me turning a pink for a few minutes, please bear with me. I'm still human. I'm not quite got it absolutely perfect. Yeah, for me, it was so life-changing and gave me a tool. And I think it was giving the power back to me. And that's what I felt I'd lost completely. It was something that I could action. I was finding it cheaper, time saving.
Yeah.
I mean, how amazing is that? Normally, I'm the one saying to people, well, if you could get this type of food and please buy organic, and, let's get you exercising. There's lots of free outdoor stuff, but, let's get you lifting some weights. And so, it's either investments in time, investments in money. And here was this magical tool that was going to save me money and save me time, which I loved it. I mean, not having to sort of get up in the morning and think instantly about food. I could actually spend a few more hours just getting into my day, and the results were there. They were
Yeah.
there so quickly. Yeah.
Didn't you find before you fasted that the first thing you thought about with food? I remember before I started intermittent fasting, I'd lay in there and be like, oh, what am I going to have for breakfast? And now it's
Yeah.
like the last thing on my mind. I don't need it. I just
No.
went for an hour run, fasted. I had a black coffee this morning and I still haven't eaten. We're what, you know, 10 to 12. And
Yeah.
I'm not hungry at all. So,
No.
you know, I've just had coffee and water this morning. But I think it's one of the things I started recommending because I've been intermittent fasting for years. And then it was my sister who's a naturopathic doctor. And she said, you need, because I was just doing 17 hours, kind of
Yeah.
18 hours every day, thinking I was doing the right thing. And she said, because obviously I was in my mid 40s when I started. And, you know, I went through quite a horrendous, kind of stressful event. And I thought, if I don't get control of my health, I'm going to get really sick here.
Yeah.
And so my sister actually introduced me to Dr. Mindy Pelz. And her book, for anyone who's interested, it's called, her main one is Fast Like a Girl. So it's by Dr. Mindy. There it is.
It's
That's what,
honestly like a
get
Bible.
on.
It is honestly like a Bible for me. Yeah.
Absolutely. Get yourself to Amazon or Waterstones and get yourself that book right now for Christmas. And actually, I've got her
The
cookbook
new
is
one.
actually, it's under the tree. I'm not allowed to look at it until Christmas. So yeah, I
It's
know I'm
beautiful.
being really mean to myself, but that's Christmas present. But yeah, that is her book and she's all over YouTube. But I think one of the hardest things for my patients to get around is as well, you know, they're so conscious about, you know, those 3 meals a day and breakfast is the most important
Yeah.
meal of the day. You and I both know it was Kellogg's that came up with that slogan because they needed a slogan in the
Absolutely.
70s. Somehow we've been brainwashed to think that cereal, fortified cereals are kind of a great way to start our day and our kids' day. And actually, it turns out to be not so true for adults.
Yeah. Yeah.
One thing we should probably just briefly touch on is who should not fast.
Oh, pregnant women, breastfeeding women, and anybody that has an eating disorder. It is really, now it's not that they can't, but it really depends where they are in their journey with
Yeah.
those issues. I'm working currently with somebody and their therapist. So they're doing really, really well. They're quite a few years past their major crisis.
Yeah.
And really do need to use it as a tool to get healthy and get control of their hormones, but is very scared to get back to where they were with the eating issues.
Yeah.
So I would just say that is not something that you can jump straight into. So
Yeah. I just wanted to clarify that.
yeah.
But it's interesting because she actually has a protocol for women who are struggling to get pregnant.
Yes.
And actually, you never know what works. But, you know, one of my patients, I told her, why don't you just start doing some, like, here's Dr. Mindy Pelz. This is her protocol for fertility, increasing fertility. And she is actually pregnant.
Yeah.
You know, who knows? There's so many different things she was doing. You can't say for sure. But she does have a protocol for anyone who is, you know, if there's anyone younger listening to this
Yeah.
podcast and struggling with fertility, there is some proven research behind intermittent fasting and fertility as well.
It's such a
Um,
balancer for your hormones.
yeah.
Yeah, progesterone and estrogen love when you fast. Like a girl, though, it's
Yeah.
not the difference between how men can fast and how women
Yeah.
can fast is enormous.
So let's dive in there. Why do women have to, like, why is it really important? Because my sister said, you're doing it all wrong. You know,
Yeah.
you never want to listen to your younger sister. Hey, so
No, no.
I'm like, I'm fine. She goes, no, 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 just listen. So I listened and it actually started to make a bit of sense because, you know, it is backed by science. So I started doing this and actually it is so much easier. And it's the first time I've really in my life tracked my cycle.
Yeah.
And actually, you know, sometimes you feel sluggish. I'm just on day 2 right now. And you know, your estrogen, testosterone is starting to build. So it's like my run, I felt a little bit sluggish because those, you know, and it just makes sense. Sometimes when you're a little bit low or you feel like super driven and it's like, oh my God, I ticked off everything on my list today. And it's like, yeah, because
Yeah,
my
I know.
estrogen and testosterone is like, okay,
What
like get
power in
all
that?
this shit done in the next 10 days.
Yes. Yeah.
So tell us why we need to fast
So
differently than men.
So my number one thing, like really big shout out, if you have one takeaway and one takeaway only from this whole podcast, it is please track your cycle. It
Mm,
is so important. I don't care if you're 12 or you're 60.
yeah,
Just track your cycle. That information is absolutely invaluable. I would say 80% of women I start to work with do not track their cycle.
most
They
don't.
have
Well, a lot of are on this on a pill or the coil, and they don't actually
yeah,
have a period at all.
no, I know.
So we've kind of told women not to cycle at all, which I think
Yeah.
needs to change a little bit.
So please, please, please track. It is the number one thing. And if you either just read Mindy's book, or you end up working with a fasting coach, it is the number one thing they're going to
Yeah.
ask you to do.
Yeah.
So also it gives you then an understanding, like you've just said, you're starting to understand your cycle so much
Yeah.
better. We have some power.
And yourself. You start to understand
Oh,
yourself as a woman. Like I tell my kids, I tell my husband, I say, this is
yes,
where
I
I
was going to
am.
say,
Like, don't piss me off today. Like in 3 days, fine. Today, I'm not having that
please,
conversation.
yeah, please share this information with your other half, because
Yeah.
it can bring harmony to the home.
Yeah.
Uh, if they just understand that you're going to be a little bit more sensitive that week up to your period, that is not the time to piss you off. But and if there's a big thing happening, let's just do it mid-cycle when all the hormones are there, giving you your superpowers. So just understanding that we have different phases. Very simply, estrogen is high in the first 2 weeks of your cycle. This is like a 28-day
Yeah.
cycle, and progesterone will rise in the second half. So it's like a symphony.
Yeah.
They play beautifully together, and when everything is working, it is like beautiful, harmonious music. But it's very easy these days to get these out of balance.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
What tracker do you use just quickly? I use a free app. It's called Period Trackers.
Well, you're talking to a postmenopausal woman here,
Okay.
so nothing to track at the moment.
Okay.
But yes, please get a free tracker. People are just jumping on the bandwagon, just trying to make so much money out of you.
Yeah.
You can put a note in just your phone, just on notes. Yeah, it doesn't need to be complicated. You just need
But
to,
Period Tracker is free.
yes,
So you
brilliant.
can use
So
that one. You can upgrade it, but you can track
don't
it
do
free. Yeah.
that. For years I did this, and it used to just be a circle on the calendar, that
Yeah.
was on the kitchen wall. And you only need to know day one, and you can just
Exactly. But then if
work.
you're having a real off day, you just go on there and it's like, oh, yeah, okay, no wonder I'm,
It's
day
like, I know.
19.
Yeah. And you're like, I'm day 25, just around the corner. I'm just going to start cycling again. This
Yeah.
is just like that. So the big difference between men and women, and why we have to fast differently as well, as our hormones are different. We're led by estrogen and progesterone. Men are led by testosterone. We work a 28-day cycle with this lovely sort of seesaw effect of these hormones. Men work testosterone all the time, pumps out every 15 minutes. That's
It's
it.
crazy, isn't it? That's all that happens in their lovely little lives.
They have that, and they don't have a menopause like we have. They do have a little bit of a drop off of their
Mm,
testosterone, but it isn't to the same effect. Like ours just go
yeah.
bye,
Yeah,
they're just
exactly.
out the door. So it's that's the biggest difference. Is we're under different control of different sex hormones.
Yeah.
They have a little bit of estrogen, we have a little bit of testosterone. There's a bit
Yeah.
of a crossover, but basically, if we try and do what blokes do when they fast, disaster. And I did this
Yeah.
with my husband. I definitely learned this the hard way. We did 2 weeks. I was absolutely flying. He was. Then I tanked, and the weight started to come back on. I was doing exactly the same as he was, exactly the same as I'd done for the first 2 weeks. He just carried on losing weight, feeling amazing. I just tanked. And by the end of the month, I'd gained weight. And I was like,
Yeah.
hang on a minute, this is not right. So he can do 17-hour fasts, even more sometimes, every single day, never has to give it any thought,
Yeah.
any attention. I have to. So
So
that's,
let's talk through the cycle a little bit because I think a lot of women don't actually know what's actually going on. So the way she separates is it, can you just go through the different phases just
yeah, of
quickly, like
course. Oh,
days 1 to 10, like what's
yeah.
happening to us and our
So,
brains? And then I think what we could do is dive into she talks about 6 main neurotransmitters. We don't
yeah,
have to go through them in detail, but I think it really, when I read her book, it made me really understand what's actually happening in menopause,
yeah,
and the importance of kind of a healthy lifestyle, which I guess as wellness chiropractors, both of us did anyway. But I think if you didn't do that in your 30s, menopause in your well, whenever it hits you, perimenopause is going to really hurt. So I remember Dr. Veronica Hope was speaking at one of our conferences. So she's also a chiropractor. She specializes in hormones and menopause. And I remember I was probably mid late 30s and I kind of shut off. I was like, yeah, this isn't for me. just listened later in a few years, and then kind of it, I was like, geez, I should have paid
And then it's
attention. Because
there.
I'm a bit of an aerobic junkie. Like I love to run, and you
Yeah,
do need to just really, I mean, I
rein it
still
in.
do all those things and I prefer them, but you do have to kind of shift, just like you have to metabolically shift through the cycle. You also have to swap up our exercise, which I don't think we're very, very good at doing.
Yeah. So one of the things that I love about Mindy is she's tried to simplify the language around our cycle as well. So we start with the build, and they used to call it the follicular phase, and then we have a luteal phase, and it's a bit like those first 2 weeks, second 2 weeks that I was describing. So everything is designed around fertilizing an egg.
Yeah.
So first of all, we have to build. Estrogen comes in, we build an egg to the point to which it is released. And at that point, progesterone is going to take her, and that egg's either going to get embedded or you're going to shed through another cycle. So Mindy changed the language around this, and it is just really nice. She has things like the manifestation
Yeah.
phase.
Yeah.
I just love it. And then a power phase, that's like your ovulation phase, because all your hormones are showing up at that point. So she just changed the language around it. So
Yeah.
basically we have, she splits it into 4 pathways. So between what day 1 and day 10, estrogen is in control, and we are just building. It's a real power phase. Then we move into ovulation, 4 days. Then we move into another 3-day section between day 16 and day 19. And then we need a nurturing phase towards the end. Progesterone loves to be nurtured. It doesn't like any stress in your life at all. So I just think of it as sort of a power phase and a nurturing phase with
Yeah.
2 little nuances there in the middle. So this is a lot easier if you've got a visual, you're looking at a chart and you can sort of see what the hormones are doing. But basically, we're going to build up to the release of an egg, and then we're going to build up to either embedding that egg or releasing it as a non-pregnancy. So I think those phases, if you like, and understanding the cycle that we go through is just really important. I love the way she's brought simpler language, like
Yeah.
a nurturing phase, a manifestation phase. I just think that's much simpler than like the medical terms. So really interesting what you say about the neurotransmitters. Again, another big sciencey word, but for those, I'm going to make this really simple.
Yeah.
So estrogen, our big, powerful hormone that comes in and will build till that follicle is ready to burst an egg forth. She is a real builder. She just comes in and she's going to make you strong, and she's going to release that egg. I mean, it's just the most amazing thing. And she has a girl gang. So think of her as a real diva. She's going to arrive at that party and she's going to be loud and proud, and she's coming straight in. She's noisy. She's going to build. She's going to get everything stirred up. And behind her, there is this whole girl gang. They are loving life if she's around, and they are your neurotransmitters. So they're things like serotonin, dopamine, BDNF. And the thing with these are, you've probably heard of things like dopamine and serotonin.
Yeah.
These are hormones that are actually going to, well, neurotransmitters that actually affect our moods. So
Yeah.
I think that's probably the simplest way to explain it. These are things that really enhance our mood. They give us concentration, they give us happiness, they uplift us, they make us see the positive side of life. They're just amazing.
Yeah.
And they come with estrogen. So the problem is when we hit perimenopause and our estrogen levels start to drop off. Now, two hormones behave very differently through menopause. Progesterone just sort of drops and sneaks off very gradually. Estrogen has these moments where she tries to make an appearance again.
Yeah.
She might disappear for a couple of months and you don't actually have a period. And then she's just back, and it's like, whoa. And then, so if you're experiencing very irregular periods at the moment, and you're going maybe 2-3 months, even 6 months, 10 months sometimes between a cycle, that is because estrogen is dropping off, and then she's making these reappearances. Now, the problem with her disappearing is all those neurotransmitters disappear as well.
Yeah.
So that's where we get the symptoms. Like and unless you're very body aware and very sensitive, you're probably not that aware of the moment that you ovulate, but you are aware of the moods that you feel. And,
Yeah.
that, like you say, the days you just feel a bit more sluggish, the days that you feel amazing. And that's estrogen basically that's leading the charge, and all these neurotransmitters are there with her,
Yeah.
lifting your mood. Now, when she's disappearing, they disappear as well. So it's no wonder through perimenopause that we start to feel overwhelm, anxiety, we feel very low. We have terrible low self-esteem. Our
Yeah.
confidence drops to nothing. And it's because these neurotransmitters are there. And sadly, so many women are offered antidepressants at this moment
Oh
because
yeah, I see it all the time
all the
actually.
time.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And it is such a sticking plaster. It isn't the problem. It's just the neurotransmitters have gone. So estrogen's disappeared. Now, the good news is this is going to balance out. You do get to the other side of this, and the body learns to live without those high levels of estrogen,
And
because it
how
doesn't.
long does that take?
I mean, you'll go, there's so many factors to that, Arlene. There's your diet plays a really big part. What's
Mm.
happening with sugar in your body is really impactful. And the other thing is stress. So the stress that you have in your life, both chemical, physical, and emotional, is going to impact all of this so strongly. And it really is going to dictate whether you have an easy journey through menopause, or whether this is going to be a pretty uphill battle for you.
Yeah.
um, I'm pretty convinced now, looking back on my own journey, that stress has been a big player in this, and it was one of the reasons that I just couldn't get on top of the symptoms. One, stress is really high, you sugar imbalance, and the way your body handles sugar and insulin resistance is going to be pretty off whack, and then ultimately your estrogen and progesterone can't behave themselves either.
Yeah.
So it's quite a cascade. But those two things, the cortisol levels and your insulin levels, so your sugar and your stress, are going to play a big part. They often say about 10 years, expect a 10-year journey through menopause. I'd probably agree with that. I think we
Right.
have 10 years from hitting puberty. So, 11, 12 years old, your periods start. It's not that you couldn't hold a pregnancy, immediately, but to be fair, most teenagers have a pretty rough journey for a few years while
Yeah.
their whole cycle establishes. So between 5 and 10 years, I would say it takes to get that system really well balanced. Obviously, that's without leaning into any sort of contraception or anything like
Yeah.
that. But and we do the opposite at the opposite end, as those hormones are trying to sort of decrease in amounts. Then I would say between 5 and 10 years again to turn off the system. That
That's interesting because, I have, teenage patients and obviously Lauren's 19. So, I've dealt with that as well. And it's really interesting that you say that because, I didn't realize like it does take, even when you first get your period, it can take that long for your body to kind of establish
yeah,
kind of a regular
I think
period.
it's
And
why.
actually, a lot of these young girls are also, they're put on the pill
Yeah,
and they're put on antidepressants or
yeah,
anti-anxiety drugs. And actually, it's just the body trying to regulate itself.
yeah.
I
I mean,
didn't,
these are the two problem areas. I do
yeah,
quite a lot of testing using the Dutch test, which is a urine test. And I genuinely felt when I started doing this and I became a provider for it, I would literally just be sitting in the 40 plus age group.
yeah,
I'm not, I'm doing more for the 20-year-olds,
that's
because they're
interesting.
absolutely falling apart through mental health. And like you say, nearly all of them are struggling with anxiety, with depression, really, really low self-esteem. And then they're not cycling because they've been put on the pill. And
Interesting. For anyone that's wondering what the Dutch test is, it's the dried urine test for comprehensive hormones. So it is a dried urine test. I just sent mine away actually, so I'm just waiting for my results. But if you want one, we'll put Debbie's details in the bottom. You can, if you want to order one, she can get that for you. But it is the most comprehensive, and it's much more accurate than a blood test. And you just do it, and if you get a complete, you get your cortisol spikes and everything. But it's a very, very comprehensive, so it checks all your hormones, and it takes away the guesswork.
yeah,
I just
I
had a
think
patient.
that's really,
Yeah,
yeah. it's
Yep.
changed the game for what I've been doing. And I'm very often surprised by the results. But honestly, the age group that's really shocking me are the sort of early 20s.
I think their diets are terrible though too, and a lot of them
Yeah,
don't exercise. Like we're in a very weird phase of
very.
not the world
Yeah.
evolution. I don't know, but we were very. I guess too, like when you talk about all these neurotransmitters, just going there for a minute. Obviously, we're designed. What I don't understand is the human body can last, they say, about 120 years. So
Hmm.
why are women dipping so badly? Because we're clearly not dying after the years of childbirth. So there's still a purpose for us. But we seem to go through this phase where is it just because our lifestyles now are quite bad?
Yeah, no, I don't know whether this is my personal theory or whether, that there are a lot more people out there saying this, but I genuinely believe right now we are a generation of people that have had a lifestyle that's never existed before, where particularly as women we've pushed for families and careers.
Yeah,
We've had 50 years of the worst food, and yeah, and technology has just arrived full on. So if you look at how we used to live our lives, how your grandparents used to live their lives, then we are so far removed from that, and that's only within 1 to 2 generations.
yeah,
I literally feel that the women that are 40 years plus right now are having the roughest time with menopause, because we are bringing a bucket load of stress and
yeah,
sugar metabolism, or metabolic issues, full stop, not just sugar. We have really screwed up how our bodies work, and we've struggled away with estrogen and progesterone present for a few decades, and then suddenly they're just doing what they would always do, which is just adios to the party at a point in
mm,
time. And we are left with exhausted adrenal glands, a pancreas that just feels like it can't pump out anymore insulin to keep sugars balanced, so much stress in our lives, yeah, and it just all crashes in. And I think that's one of the things that's led to this being such a hot topic right now, is that the majority of women are struggling, whereas 50, 60 years ago, a minority of women struggled. Most people sort of got through menopause, because
yeah,
I'm not saying that my gran had an easy ride. It just wasn't a point of discussion. But I she was a stay-at-home mummy. She had a relatively easy life, I think,
yeah.
compared to modern day living. Um, and I think that's all. I think we are bringing a bucket load of stress with us into menopause, and that's what's causing sort of almost like an epidemic of menopause issues.
Yeah. Because
Um,
I was considered myself quite healthy, but then I did like I
yeah,
went through 4 years of insane stress, and I think that's probably and then went right into perimenopause, and I think that probably wasn't the best precursor
no,
for my journey.
it isn't, and it just means that you need to be doubly on top of, and that's why the Dutch test is a wonderful test for you. It's
Yeah,
like, stop guessing where is your biggest stressor.
yeah,
Sometimes I've done tests on people, and I, where we put the focus on the results that we have is very different where they thought they were going to have the focus.
yeah,
For example, I worked with a lady once. She came to me, she said, can you help me with diet? I'd like the fasting lifestyle, blah blah blah. We chatted, hormones were a big issue, we did the Dutch test, took one look at the results, and it's like, we have to get your sleep pattern better. Now, that
yeah,
wasn't where she thought she was going to be starting, it wasn't where I thought we'd be starting, but we had to start with that. And then after a couple of months of working with that routine, then we could start building. So finally you address all the areas in a lifestyle, but you do it in the right order for that person.
yeah.
And it is really important. No woman is the same. Every situation is unique.
It's because their journey to get to midlife and
It's
it's
unique.
been very, very different. So some
Yeah,
people have had maybe more metabolic issues, some more maybe hormonal. I know they're tied in. Some women are
yeah.
going into it overweight and they can, they're now putting some weight on. But let's go through, like, can you tell us when are we supposed to eat differently? Like, and what is like, because
Okay.
obviously estrogen, we know that estrogen hates
Okay.
sugar.
Hates sugar.
progesterone hates stress. So
Yes.
when you start fasting, when you start tracking your cycle, it's actually quite good because you know that there's several days at the end before you bleed, or even if you don't have a period, you can still start using the 28-day calendar. My sister's 51. She's not had a period for 6 months, and she's just starting to do this with me right now because we're seeing, can we reboot this thing?
Mm,
Because it does work for some women actually, and so
yeah,
she's starting to do this, but yeah, she has to now just start, so she doesn't have a period, but she's just going to start day one and see what happens. But
yeah.
it's really interesting because obviously we all crave some carbs,
Hmm.
and you're going to tell us in a minute that maybe, when our progesterone is rising in that second phase, that a little bit more carbohydrate is actually good for us.
Yeah,
Whereas, if you want to do some of the longer fasts, and we'll talk about that in a minute, those are best done kind of at the very, very beginning of your cycle,
yeah.
as estrogen, testosterone are building. So if you want to do 24-hour fast, 3 to 5 day fast, which we'll talk about, and some of the benefits of those. So maybe if we go through like the different lengths of fasts, and actually if we just touch on when are we supposed to be eating what.
Okay, so you summarized that quite well. So when estrogen is around, she doesn't mind some stress. She's a diva. She doesn't mind
Mm,
if there's a bit of cortisol around, a bit of stress, bring it on. She's like, yeah,
yeah.
and she's got a girl gang with her anyway, so she's pretty powerful. She doesn't mind, and that's when you need to play into, big events in your life. Is there a big meeting that you need to put in place with work? Is there difficult conversations you want to be having, with anybody? Do it in this phase. So estrogen's around. She doesn't mind a bit of stress. She hates sugar. So what you need to be concentrating on for the first few weeks of your cycle is keeping that sugar level really low. Like the keto diet became really, really popular.
Yeah.
The trouble with it is if you stay on it all the time, yeah, you are really going to harm your hormone fluctuations.
Yeah.
So leaning into a keto type diet for the beginning part of your cycle is absolutely fantastic. So cutting as many carbs out, as much sugar out, nothing naughty, nothing refined, nothing. And yes, that can take a little bit of willpower at
Yeah.
first, because everything's going to scream out from your gut microbiome that's imbalanced, that would really love you to put a bit more sugar
Yeah.
there, to the hormones being imbalanced, to just the addictions and that we have with sugar. So lean into that. It passes really, really quickly.
Yeah, I
um
want to, like, just to add in, just think hunter gatherer.
yeah,
So like
yeah,
meat, pulses, lots of olive oils, avocado oils, butter, ghee, tallow. Cut the refined, like all the vegetable oils and stuff like that
yeah.
can all go.
If
But
it's
yeah,
got a label on it, question it. If it
yeah,
comes from the ground, you're great. Yeah.
yeah,
So that's what estrogen loves. Then you're going to ovulate. So you need to just back off a little bit.
yeah.
You can introduce a few more of nature's carbs, things like sort of sweet potatoes are absolutely great. Just be a little bit more gentle with yourself. You're going to feel super powerful because this is when we get our little shot of testosterone. So
What days are ovulation
11 to
roughly?
14, 11 to
Yeah,
15. So you've got about 4 days there in the middle.
yeah.
You can, if you're really trying to get a handle on your cycle, regardless of whether it's for fertility or not, you can get an ovulation test kit. You start testing from about day 9 or 10. It's like a pregnancy test
Yeah.
kit. You just sort of pee on a stick. You'll get a smiley face when you ovulate. You might even like to take your temperature, but it's going to help you sort of work out your cycle. But it's usually about 4 days in the middle. So day 11 to day 14. Just a little bit gentler with yourself.
Yeah.
And then we've got a situation for 3 or 4 days where estrogen is going to be dropping off, and progesterone is going to be starting to rise. So again, this is a really good phase. It's only a few days, but we can lean into keto a little bit more. There's nothing we've really got to pay huge attention to. So it's just a few days we can have a little bit of a breather, but then you need to switch your mindset and say, actually, progesterone is rising. Progesterone is my really soft, gentle, nurturing. Think of it as a pregnancy. P for progesterone, P for pregnancy, or P for period, whichever you want. But it's the hormone that's going to guide that last phase, if you like, of your cycle, and it's either going to prepare your body for a pregnancy, which obviously is its primary job,
Mm-hmm.
so it's very nurturing, it's very calm, it's very loving, and it's very gentle, and it is terrified of cortisol. So that would be like the shy girl in the playground, that the bully comes along and she just goes away, she doesn't want to come out and play at all, and the only thing you might coax her out with is a little bit of chocolate, because she just absolutely loves glucose. So if you can, and that's why we get the cravings that we do. The more desperate the body gets to raise the levels of progesterone, the worse sugar cravings you're going to have. So if you're struggling with PMS, or you're really struggling through the perimenopause, with sugar, it's because of progesterone. So
Yeah.
if we can lean into that, I mean, a lot of the work to make this correct is done at the beginning of the cycle. So if you go keto when estrogen's around, and you've looked after your ovulatory phase, and you're just building up to the end, you're probably going to have a really good run up to the next period. If you haven't, you're going to start to run into all those PMS type symptoms. So it's about leaning into nature's carbs, giving progesterone a little bit more of the carb type foods, allowing that blood glucose to rise a little bit, but keeping stress way down. And
Yeah.
this is where exercise junkies like you can sometimes go really wrong, because
Yeah.
you don't nurture progesterone enough, and you still keep going out 4 weeks of every month, going out, doing the big runs, getting up, doing the HIIT classes, and progesterone needs you just to back off a little bit. It needs you to just go and do a yoga class, or go for a beautiful country walk, or just meet with some friends, and it just needs you to nurture yourself a bit more. And that's the week leading up to your period. That's the really key phase to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just want to touch, as we go through menopause, obviously it's the ovaries stop producing the progesterone, and it moves into the adrenal gland.
Estrogen. So estrogen,
Estrogen. Yeah, sorry.
yeah, well, both. So your ovaries are going to produce both, but primarily it's the estrogen. So your estrogen comes from your ovaries, they start shutting down, and then it's your adrenal glands that will take over.
Yeah.
It's not such a strong form of estrogen that your adrenal glands produce. It's
No,
not.
but I think some women think their hormones are gone. And I'm like, no. They're still there. They're just age appropriate. But I guess because the adrenal gland is responsible for cortisol production,
Yeah.
when we're
Good.
constantly stressed out and on the go, and you don't actually allow your body to have that nurturing phase in progesterone, it
Yeah.
really starts to affect the age appropriate hormones that are being taken over by another gland. And so
Yes.
keeping those stress levels low during a period of the 28-day cycle is really key going through
It's
perimenopause, menopause.
interesting what you say there, Arlene, about age appropriate. Age appropriate is probably I think, going to become the key phrase moving forwards. We are not giving HRT out right now to be age appropriate. We're giving it out to override and replace pre-menopause levels, if that makes sense. And
Interesting. So trying
it's
to keep us 30.
yes,
We're
and
not.
we're not. So if you're experiencing symptoms through perimenopause, you need a very small dose to still keep you age appropriate, but just enough to knock the symptoms off.
Yeah.
Not so much that you're swinging the dial into your pre-menopause phase. And that's what I'm seeing a lot of, particularly when we do the Dutch test, is that estrogen and progesterone are really high again. And that's going to cause huge issues with detoxing. It's just inappropriate for our age.
Because I think I'm not anti-HRT. I think it's saved
No,
some women's lives. It makes,
yeah,
some women, I've talked to a few women who say I couldn't function. The anxiety was so bad. And I started taking it within days. I felt normal again. So
yeah,
I think
hallelujah,
women,
yeah,
but at some point we have to come off HRT.
yes.
And HRT, especially through the NHS, it's mainly, I would imagine, it's synthetic, or can you get bioidentical hormones on the
No,
NHS?
nothing from that, not yet. And to be fair, I've done quite a lot of reading about this, and the body identical and the synthetic hormones are currently showing very similar results in women.
Okay.
There's you will only get the body identical ones through private clinics.
Yeah.
They have a tendency to be a little bit more overprescribed, whereas the synthetic ones from your GP are very heavily regulated.
Yeah.
There's still a very strong memory in the medical profession about the experience from 20 years ago, where HRT, it was a very, very different beast back then. But everybody sort of got a little bit burnt by the whole experience of
Yeah. They took it off the
20
market
years ago.
immediately, didn't they? Yeah.
Instantly took it off
Yeah.
the market, and there were a lot of doctors doing some really good work with women, you know, in the menopause, that literally had to come off HRT that very month. It was just banned. It was just like buff, gone.
That must have been horrendous for women where it was working. I
Horrendous.
mean,
Yes.
just
So if you were one of those women and it was working brilliantly, and then it was just,
didn't have, yeah.
yeah, horrendous.
Briefly, sorry to interrupt.
No.
What is the difference between the synthetic, just to, if anyone doesn't know, like bioidentical or body identical?
Plant-based,
Yeah.
chemical-based, basically. Yes. So it's all about the receptors on the cell sites and what is most recognizable. And I genuinely feel right now that they've got them both pretty good. If you can get the dose right and your body can detox efficiently, and something also called methylation, which happens in the liver, which is again part of the detox process. So just to summarize, with 4 things with hormones: we have to make them, we use them, we detox them, and we excrete them. And detoxing them is really, really important. So whether you're on synthetic or body identical, so plant or chemical based, doesn't matter, as long as the dose is appropriate for you and you're detoxing it.
How do
So
we detox? Because there's something
yeah,
called dirty estrogens as well, hey?
yeah, there are a lot of dirty estrogens out there, you know, from plastic, from foods, from our environment. We pick up estrogens, and they cause issues within our body. We can get very estrogen dominant by things in our environment, and certainly by medication, you know, HRT type medication, if you're popping that into your body. And we call it, they don't call it hormone replacement therapy anymore, HRT, it's menopause replacement therapy. So it's because they can give hormones at any ages now. It doesn't necessarily need
I
to
see.
be menopause. I know. So yeah, it's really important then that we get that estrogen out of our body through one of the healthy pathways. So there are 3 detox pathways. One of them is the preferred pathway. It's from all of them are to do with enzymes released from the liver.
Yeah.
The second one is the more worrying pathway. If you like, when we see that on the Dutch test, it's always a little bit more worrying, because it's the one that causes DNA disruption and causes cancer changes within uterine and breast tissue. So it's another of my favorite things about the Dutch test, is the fact that you can have an indicator that that is an issue for you, that you're actually moving down that pathway, and that's the way most of your estrogen is going. There'll be probably a lot of women that listen to this that maybe know somebody or themselves have had a breast cancer scare. You will have been warned instantly about estrogen, that all estrogen needs to be kept out of your body. You can't have HRT, you need to keep it out. And it's because it's an estrogen dominant cancer. So if you have a lot of estrogen in your body and it's moving down that cancer pathway and not the preferred healthy pathway, then that is invaluable information, because the way you make a switch from one to the other is lifestyle. So clean up your diet, clean up your lifestyle, and estrogen will instantly start using the preferred pathway.
So
So
sorry, how would you know if it's going down the
you have to test for it.
and what would you see?
You see, oh my goodness.
Or what sort of enzymes is it showing you?
Oh, yeah, wait. It's called the 4OH. So
Okay.
it's the 4OH pathway. I was just going to see if I had a picture handy, but yeah. Um, I when you get the Dutch test, you see it color coded on
Yeah.
a pie chart, and you're wanting a very, very small amount go through that pathway. I mean,
Okay.
literally a few percent. And sometimes I see it that people are up 30, 40% using that pathway. So
Gotcha.
So it's a shift. It's like clean up the liver, let's clean up the gut, let's like start pushing everything down the healthy path. So good lifestyle stuff again.
Mm. And
It's
allowing the body to go into methylation and detoxification, which is why we need a healthy gut microbiome. We've been
exactly.
talking about it for 20, 30 years now, but I still don't think it's in the
No, it's not.
mainstream.
You know, you don't know if you're without testing if you're methylating well or which
Yeah.
pathway you're using. I don't know. You know, yeah, on the outside, you can seem completely healthy. I had a very dear friend last year get a diagnosis of breast cancer. You know, she was fit, she was healthy. It was not obvious on the outside that she was living, you know, a lifestyle that you thought would be creating disease within her body. But you know, now having done a Dutch test on her, it's like absolutely you can
Yeah.
see where that toxicity was building up. And that information is powerful because
Yeah.
you can action change. Prevention is always better than cure. So if you
Yeah.
get this information and you can move forwards with it and create health and not disease within your body, phenomenal.
Yeah.
Um,
And
so
this starts too so young too. Like, even if young girls are eating a garbage diet, like a lot of us do,
they're going to see
especially
it.
in,
They still got to get, yeah.
yeah.
You make
It's just
it.
that liver is just plugging up and plugging up. And it's not just alcohol. I think people just think the
Oh,
liver detox is alcohol. I mean, it does, like, it's a massive detoxer for estrogens.
yeah. Yeah, and you know, alcohol alone, is somebody just binging over a weekend, or are they drinking a little bit every night? You
Mm.
know, and do they have a threshold? Do they have a tolerance level? Should they be avoiding? You talk to a menopausal woman, they just can't cope with alcohol
No,
anymore.
it's weird, isn't it? It's like overnight, it's like, oh my God, half a glass of red wine. And
Yeah,
I'm just like, the next day, yeah, you
I
definitely
know.
feel it.
You
It's
definitely,
like,
and actually, if you think back, you probably feel it decade on decade. What you could do in your 20s, you can't in your 30s, your 40s, your 50s, and then suddenly it's like, really, I'm just nicknamed a lightweight now. I'm just like the cheapest date out there. Like one drink, thank you very much.
I know, because you know how you're going to feel the next day. And it's good fun at the time. But yeah, the next
Oh,
day you do feel it.
really cripples you, and that's because the liver is so busy, like
Yeah.
still trying to detox, it's trying to keep a balance. It's such an amazing organ. But yeah, that's a really really big part of it. Yeah.
Should we talk about the different lengths of fast then and what some
Yeah.
of the benefits are? Because I think just, yeah, to any woman listening to this, just try to avoid
Okay.
17
So
hours every single day. And we're just going to talk about why that's really, really important.
yeah, so Mindy runs a 30-day program. And that's just to accommodate people that have a slightly longer cycle. If yours is 28, you do 28, you go back to
Yeah.
day one. Um, so she's created a pathway, if you like, for you to play into your estrogens, ovulation, progesterone levels using keto and also sort of hormone feasting foods as well. So a lot more carbs. And she guides you through that pathway.
Yeah.
But whatever foods that you're choosing, she also then lines up the length of fast that suits those particular hormones. And this is where men and women just go so desperately wrong. So I would say a bloke should probably stick with 17 hours a day and drop an odd 24 hours in, unless they've got a proper health issue like gut health they're trying to improve or repair some damage to a tissue. And I'll talk about those with the different length fasts. So they're really easy. Women need to do it not only thinking about the type of foods that they're going to be eating, but the length of fast to play in with each of the hormones. So for the first 10 days, you can go big into fasting. So you can do anything from sort of 15 hours up to probably 36 hours, or even longer if you have a real reason to do it. But that first 10 days is the time to do it. Then you back off a bit. You wouldn't want to go longer than 15 hours for a few days. Yeah, have 3 or 4 days again where you can do the longer fasts, anything from 17 sort of upwards. Then you stop. Then no fasting at all from day 19, day 20, right through to when you cycle again. So that's the overall
Yeah.
view of it. The 6 different length fasts that Mindy has worked out work really well and for different reasons. there's intermittent fasting. Intermittent fasting is sort of 12 to 14 hours without food. So people either like to think of this as I'm not eating, or they have an eating window. So you talk about it whichever language suits you
I
best.
like the eating window. It sounds more positive.
Exactly. I do as well. So that's about creating an eating window that is sort of 10 to 12 hours. Yeah. So just depending. And please, if you have never gone more than sort of 8 hours of being asleep and you wake straight up and have breakfast, please don't think you can instantly go and do 14 hours. You're going to be eating
Yeah.
your own harm by the time you get there. You sometimes need to stretch it just by half an hour. Bring your evening meal half an hour earlier, your breakfast half an hour later, and before you know it, you've extended that sort of non-eating window. And every day can be a little bit different. So have a little bit better think about what's in your calendar. What I love about fasting is it can fit in with whatever else is going on
Yeah.
in your life. So, family are coming, then that's fine. Have
I
dinner.
know.
This
Yeah.
isn't about sacrifice. So intermittent fasting is the shortest one. If ever I do sort of guided fasting programs, it tends to be an introduction to intermittent fasting, because I think it's the one that anybody can do. You could be at any point in your cycle and you can actually just lean into that and just learn. So combine that with the eating program that's going to suit you. You've got a wonderful combination there. You get up to 17 hours and you start to do something called autophagy. And this is where your body goes round and it mops up dead and diseased cells. So it's like
Yeah.
self-cleaning. I just love this. So we do have cells that mutate a little bit and that obviously struggle with, disease, or, just needs to get out of your body. When we don't eat, then that happens. So it's a really great phase. It's something that I just absolutely love the thought of. It starts at 17 hours and it builds up to optima is 72 hours. So that's 3 days.
Yeah.
So you can lean into that at any point. So you can do 17 hours and go, yeah, I've just dropped into that. And you're burning fat all the time at this point. So as soon as your body doesn't realizes food isn't coming, it builds into a fat burning system. So this is where the weight loss side is so invaluable. Your body goes after all the stored food. I think it's so funny. I've got a dog who's obsessed with squirrels at the moment, and they're all on the ground because they're burying their nuts ready for
Yeah.
winter. They're prepping for this. So that's all your body does. When there's an excess, it just stores it. And then you go after that when in times that are leaner, which is when you're fasting. So if you want to go after stored fat, you have to create an opportunity for the body to switch
Yeah.
away from using the sugar that you're just putting in your mouth in food form to actually what's stored. So anything above intermittent fasting is going to do that. So after 8 hours of no more food coming into your mouth, your body's going to start burning fat, which is brilliant. So 17 hours, you're still burning fat, but then you're going to start mopping up dead and diseased cell
Yeah.
as well. You get to 24 hours, your body will reset your gut microbiome. Now that is done by introducing, when you do eat after 24 hours, exactly the right type of food that supports your gut. So that's an important step in that sort of fast.
Yeah.
But 24 hours, and most people go, I can't eat for 24 hours.
Yeah.
It's like, yes, you can.
Yeah. And it's important to understand, like if your body's they say about after 8-10 hours, your body starts to burn ketones, which
Mm.
is what they call
It's
ketosis.
your
And your
fat. It's basically when your body starts to use fat as its energy
yeah,
source opposed to glucose.
yeah.
And it's amazing. It's what gives women energy and
Yeah.
clarity. And so
And it's
it
like they say it's like fertilizer to the brain too. So like anyone with like brain fog or
builds
like
neurons.
because
Yeah.
you got to remember all these neurotransmitters are dropping. So like BDNF is brain-derived neurotropic factor that drops. So it's kind of like fertilizer when you get into these longer fasts.
Yeah. And it just,
Acetylcholine is also like really good for memory. So all of these neurotransmitters are kind of rebooted. And one of the ways she explained it, which is how I think it's the easiest way to understand because I'm North American, but it's you've got your fridge in the kitchen and then you've got your deep freeze in the garage, which is stored with all your, like my mom used to buy like half a cow every year and a pig, and they was all stored in like brown wrapper in the garage. But if you like, your glucose is in the fridge in the kitchen, so it's very, very easy to access, and
Easy
it's
to
what your body
access.
will always use first because it's an easy fuel. You don't use protein for fuel. But once that glucose is pretty much almost gone, only then will it go to the garage because it's usually cold out there and actually start to access your fat stores. So your fat stores are not going to be utilized as a primary fuel source until you've kind of depleted the glucose.
Yeah.
So that's one of the reasons that calorie counting actually it just fails so many people because your your body's just not teaching yourself. And you wouldn't, if you're starting to intermittent fast and you think, oh, this is a good idea, I'm going to dive in, don't go and do a 24-hour fast right away because your body's not used to getting into ketosis and burning fat.
No.
So it's like a muscle, and she talks about it, it's like a beautiful balance between fast and feast and fast and feast.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, what are we now, 12:30, and I'm not hungry. I haven't eaten, and I've
Yeah.
run, I think it was 6 miles this morning. I'm not hungry.
Yeah.
But I've been
But
doing
the
this for
body does
years.
that. When you're burning ketones, like when you're burning fat and you're making ketones, you're not hungry. So hunger goes away, and it
Mm,
does come back to the hunter-gatherer scenario. Whereas if you had to go and hunt for your food as opposed to go to the supermarket or have it delivered to your door, you required energy, clarity. Your body had to be in an optimal state to go and hunt for your food. So when we start using our stores up, so when you've gone out to that freezer and
yeah,
you're burning fat as your energy source, you feel amazing, which is
mm,
the one thing that perimenopausal women do not feel. They
no,
they feel incredibly low, and their energy and the brain fog and the anxiety are all high. And once you actually start swapping your energy source across, that all goes away. So it can become very addictive. And it has been a problem for a few people that I've
yeah.
coached, in as much as they feel so good when they don't eat, that it's very tempting to keep going into that. But I
Yeah,
promise
that is
you,
starvation.
that is starvation, and
And
this is
that's
not
not what
about
this is about. No.
starvation. No, it isn't. This is about feeding your body. And in fact, I'd love you still to have 2,000, 2,500 calories a day, but have them in your eating window and have
Yeah.
them the types of food that your hormones need. So this is absolutely not about calorie counting. You'll never get me doing that. It's about eating in a really clean, healthy way in windows of time
Yeah.
actually really suit you. And these 6 different length fasts are the very simplest one. The intermittent fasting is just designed to swap you from sugar burner to fat burner. That's
Yeah.
as simple as it is. There are other reasons that people do these longer fasts, and it can be to reset dopamine, for example. That's the 48-hour fast. To really dig in and get you into a fat burner state is 36 hours. The gut reset is 24 hours. And the one that I just think is absolutely magical is the 3-day. So the 72 hours where we actually start to make new stem cells. So if
And
you're
this is a phenomenal research, actually, this one, because a lot
are
of what you obviously your chiropractor and anyone, like at this age, because when we lose collagen production from about 32, but our bodies become they just become stiffer. The estrogen drops. Frozen shoulder is really not an uncommon injury and it just happens out of the blue,
yeah,
and and they're like, oh, I didn't do anything. But oftentimes it's just tanking estrogen.
yeah.
And yeah, tell us what happens at 3 to 5 days. I mean, the research is
So
phenomenal. What the body does is actually just quite
oh,
miraculous.
it's amazing. So the simplest way to think of it is stem cells are something that your body produces, and they're undifferentiated. So they don't have a job, they don't have a purpose. They can go anywhere in your body and become or do anything. So the cleverness of your body will dictate where those stem cells go to. And a 72-hour fast produces a real flush right through your body of new stem cells. So if you're looking for a repair of an old injury, or that's probably the best actually way to think of it, is a sort of repair and renewal of your body. You need and want lots and lots of stem cells. So when you rest your body with 72 hours of no food going in, your body just floods it with stem cells. My personal experience, I just have to share this because it just blew me away, was the exact thing happened to me at the end of July, out of the blue, frozen shoulder. This shoulder absolutely crippled, couldn't cope with the pain. I was at hospital, I was at the doctor's, I was on every painkiller you could imagine. I was just floored me. Um, and the doctor was like, well, cortisone injection. And I was like, yeah, well, great, I'd probably do absolutely anything right now to get out of pain. And he said, but I think it'd be the end of September. And I went, but this is the first week in August, and like I can't actually wait that long. So I came home and I said to my husband, I said, I'm going to do a 3-day fast. So I had to really think, because I was on quite a lot of medication for the pain, so I had to swap over just to paracetamol, because obviously anything with food I couldn't then take. So just swapped to paracetamol and started. But the reality was I felt so sick with the pain. It wasn't actually a hard thing to do. So I started, and within 24 hours, I didn't even need that paracetamol, and I haven't had any medication since. It I just can't describe to you the difference in the 3 days to where I was to where I actually ended up after 3 days. It wasn't hard. It was an absolute joy actually to be able to do something proactive rather
Yeah.
than just sit there in pain, just struggling through sort of literally every hour. It's been a long haul, and I've still had to rehab it, and I
Yeah.
probably should lean in and do another 3-day. But if you have a reason, if you've got some sort of joints, if you've got some degenerative changes, some autoimmune disorder, then honestly, the 3 to 5 day is an insane way to reboot your body. And my personal experience was just 10 out of 10. It worked like an absolute dream. Yeah, but you cannot go from 0 to 100 and just
No,
do it.
no.
Please don't do that. Like, if I hadn't been experienced at fasting, if I hadn't sort of already understood where my body was at, I would not have just done that. If you are unfortunate enough to be going through chemo or anything like that, again, the 3-day fasts are invaluable. They reboot your immune system, you build all these stem cells. It's such an amazing route. There
Yeah,
are
that
some,
is some amazing research. And that's where the
yeah,
research was actually. It was, can they get their white blood cells back up after
yeah,
chemo?
and
And
they
it was
absolutely,
incredible.
yeah, they
Yeah.
absolutely can. I know somebody from South Africa, and they actually have clinics over there that
Yeah.
um, while they're going through chemo, they actually go into these fasted states. And again, because they just want to reboot the immune system, they want these stem cells. So I find it a really exciting tool, and we're on the cusp of just truly understanding the power of it. But
Yeah.
for me, it plays into the way we have lived for millennia with the hunter-gatherer,
Yeah.
the way the body is designed to heal itself, or to be its sort of its self-healing entity, if we can just remove the
Yeah.
interference from
In the
it.
in the early 1900s, though, like doctors used to prescribe fasts to,
Hmm.
patients for many different things, actually.
Yeah,
And so now we've got, because the advances in medicine, we can now test, like the Dutch test. I don't know when that came out, but that's quite fairly new.
yeah.
We can now test many different things, and we can, so we have the proper research to actually back up these, I guess, more holistic, more vitalistic ways of healing, which I think is quite incredible.
Mhm.
Tell us a little bit. I guess this is like the strap line of the Midlife Manifesto is redefining aging. And it really is one of the reasons I did this. It's my own personal journey, and just constantly learning about, what we can do to actually get our get our power back, if you like, or just be a little bit more in control about how we age. How is this? Obviously, you talked about like the Pac-Man, the autophagy, it comes up and cleans things. So like the
Mhm.
zombie cells and bad cells and dead and dying cells, they just kind of get gobbled up and excreted out of the body so that your body can replenish. So I guess is that where the main, not anti-aging, because nothing's anti-aging,
Yeah,
but just
for as long as your body has food coming into it and it has glucose, then we're going to have quite quick cell renewal. And we're in a process at that called mTOR,
yeah,
which is a growth and build. And it's like we've got loads of energy and we can just keep doing this. But it also means there's a really quick cell turnover. And the thing with aging is that we only have a certain number of almost like photocopies, if you like, of a cell that
Like
we can
cell
do.
divisions. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. So we have a finite number of that, and best guess is that humans should live 120 years. But we speed that up all the time. So every time you get a new cell, yeah, then you're shortening your lifespan, if you like. So if we can do anything to keep our cells healthy, but to keep them regenerating at a sort of slightly slower rate, then that extends our life. So not only are you healthier, you're disease free, but you're living your best life. You've got the
Yeah.
highest quality of the life that you can have. And it is all to do with just giving your body these small bites of rest,
Yeah.
and allow it metabolically switching is such an important concept for people to get. And it's where you just are flipping between two. Why would we have two energy systems? Like, what is the point? Like, if food's available, then like let's just have that energy system. But we
Yeah.
are so clever, we have a backup system,
Yeah.
and the backup system makes us into like superhuman beings, because the only way to survive if you're hungry is to go out and get food. So you need to be strong, you need to be, like in hunter mode. You
Yeah.
need clear vision, clear thoughts. You need to be, you can't be like, oh, I'm so hungry. And the reality is, I see so many young people going, I'm really hungry, I'm really hungry, I've got to eat, I've got to eat. And if you get hangry, I guarantee you're out of balance. So
Exactly. Yeah. If you can't do like a
do,
13, 15-hour fast,
yeah,
your body cannot get
you
into
need
ketosis.
you need this
Yeah.
more than anybody else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
So it is interesting, like sometimes at 8 hours without food, my tummy will just rumble once, and I just go, oh, shut up, ketones are coming. And it's
Yeah.
just
Yeah. Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, just go. And then it's gone for like 6 hours. And then yeah, it's just your body will send you a signal, but do you run to the fridge and get that food and put it in there, which is going to keep you like in sugar burner, or do you actually then lean into it and allow it, yeah,
Yeah.
to do some of the magic?
Yeah.
And like you say, I would always start people like literally like the 12 hours, the 17 hours, then the 24, then the 36,
Yeah.
then the 48. And if needed, not everybody needs to do a 3 day, fast, but if you've got a reason to do it, oh my goodness, the power of
Yeah.
it. You could start it on a Friday. I guarantee by Monday morning you will feel like a new human being.
Yeah.
There are so many things you can do with 3 days in
Yeah.
your life, but you can literally turn your health around.
Yeah, and I guess you don't ever know because our risk of heart disease goes up mega actually, as
No
estrogen
estrogen.
drops. Yeah.
So
So it's just being proactive, really. It's like, do you have a reason? I don't know. Do you have a reason to do many things in the day? But a 3 day, 5 day water fast twice a year, they say has miraculous, like even just
miraculous. Yeah.
decreased risk of certain cancers is what they're finding as well. So I guess that's a reason.
Yeah. I mean,
You
because
know.
I naturally did this in August, I'm already sort of thinking I'm going to do one in January.
Mm,
So I will just do a 3 day fast, because I did that one very quickly, literally walked out of the doctor's on the Thursday evening and decided Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Anyway, we had family around that whole
yeah.
weekend. We had dinners out planned, we had a brunch on the Sunday, and I just went along to them all. I just thought,
You
this
just
isn't about the food. This is, and in some
That's
ways
discipline, Debbie.
well, it sort of made it easier that there were people around, there was things
Yeah.
happening, and it was just, yeah, my food bill was less. What can I say? Everybody else is having to pay for these really expensive meals, and I just like, could I have a cup of
Could I have a
lemon
black
tea,
coffee?
please? Yeah. Um, and it was fine. Time ticks on by, and
Yeah.
I, I knew it was making such a massive difference to my body. And yeah, some people would argue that was starving it. I just was like, no, I'm making stem cells. And
I just look at you like you're crazy, hey?
yeah, completely crazy.
What?
But a lot of people have heard of intermittent fasting these days.
Mm,
Just that seems very extreme, and I would say you need to understand it a little bit. I would say read Mindy's books.
yeah.
Talk to me. Yeah, it's not something you just, oh, I'm just going to do 3 day water fast. I've a male friend who decided they were going to do that, and it's like, well, crazy boy, but he's not going to run into the problems that a woman would,
Yeah.
doing that. So it's it's a big topic, and when Mindy started coaching her coaching program this year. I signed straight up to it because I realized that if I was going to have to be able to teach people this, then I wanted to learn from the person that had brought it to the masses, but also, just like anything I've ever done in my life, I really, really wanted to have the information clear and to help people on an individual level. And so I would highly recommend both her books, either Fast Like a Girl or Eat Like a Girl, which you will love it when you unwrap your Christmas present. It will be amazing. And a lot of people can teach themselves by reading those two books, but if you are struggling, or you feel there's more blocks than you're getting to the other side of, then don't feel bad if you have to reach work with a coach. We do it in every aspect of our lives. There sometimes makes me laugh that people will get a PT in a gym and won't have like a lifestyle coach or a fasting coach just to help them get on the right path. And so never feel bad about asking for a bit of help and making sure that you're on the right.
It's a hard thing, I think, sometimes, and you don't know if you're doing it right. You don't know when you're supposed to, the different lengths of fast and what the purpose of them are. But it's also just an accountability, somebody.
Well, when I'm coaching people, like we have a WhatsApp every single day, and it sort of starts with me sort of saying what the length fast that day is going to be, and then what the foods are going to be. And as the weeks go by, it's like, so what are you eating today? And when is your eating window? And honestly, by the end of a couple of months, you hardly hear from people again. It's like, I've got this.
I think some people think it's very restrictive, and I don't like being restricted. Like if I go on holiday and I want breakfast, I'll have breakfast. I don't care what day I'm on because I'm on holiday. It's you can flex when you're healthy. It doesn't mean you have to be so regimented. And I think I've never done calorie counting. It's just never it just seems really tedious to me. And then turns out it doesn't actually work anyway. And actually like a steak and butter and things like that, they're very calorie dense, but actually they're really good for you. So, it's
and then your body knows what to do with it. It will know what to do with the steak and butter more than it will a packet of processed biscuits.
Exactly.
So, one might be quick and easy to grab, the other, and I was like, you need to source clean things, healthy things. I mean, I'm being very lax at the moment, but I know my stress levels are high. We're moving house on Friday, and so I'm very aware that my cortisol's high. I'm not sleeping particularly well. So now is not the time to lean into big fights, but add extra stress. I'm just, making sure that I get outside every day, that I'm getting fresh air, I'm walking, I'm doing slightly gentler exercise, because you can't just keep piling on problem after problem after problem.
Because even though this is healthy, it's one of those hermetic stresses, and there is like ice bathing, breath holds, also like intermittent fasting is stressful, which is why you don't fast when your progesterone's coming in, because it wants the oxytocin, it wants the lovey-dovey, it wants the bubble baths and the candles and everything like that. So when you are stressed out, this fasting is a stress, but I think we become too comfortable. We're too warm all the time. We don't like to be hungry. We don't like to be cold. We don't like to be hot. We don't like to be this. And so the body actually just gets really, really sluggish. And then you hit midlife and it's like, well, actually, your body's just not strong anymore. The resilience in your immune function, your brain health, your mental health, your everything it's become quite just weak, I suppose. And I think that's one of the things with fasting is it's like you say, it's the fast, the famine, or the fast and the feast, the famine, the feast. I'm not saying it right. But it's the metabolic shift, it's the yo-yo between the two. So you're constantly pulsing these muscles.
Yeah,
and then
that's 100% what it is. It's just develop the muscle that allows you to metabolically switch, and your body knows what to do. Once you do that, and you can do it in line with your hormones, we're smart enough to do this. Women are definitely smart enough to do this. Track your cycle, know when day one is, follow the book. Coach, whatever. It's not hard. The Eat Like a Girl book is phenomenal. Every single meal is there. Like there's a choice of 10 breakfasts, 20 lunches. Just choose whatever you fancy.
You start to learn over time. It goes, okay, I'm going to hunt and gather now. I'm going to just have a little bit more.
100. That's sort of the phase I'm in, and I'm just sort of thinking, just for the next couple of weeks. It's
be kind to yourself, Debbie.
Just be kind to myself. That's it. Whereas, like in August, it was like I'm doing full 3 on days. It's just the most amazing tool that gives you your power back. If you're feeling a bit low with your moods,
Yeah.
I've got to make some neurotransmitters. How do I do that? Right. I've got to feed my body the right way. I've got to try and up my estrogen a bit. I've got to, and it's like you have tools. And you probably understand your body. I mean, when I said to my GP that could my shoulder be hormones, he was like, no.
Really? Even
You
now?
know nothing. I was just like,
Really?
yeah, he
The
absolutely said,
frozen shoulder is really not that uncommon in
no, it's
middle-aged
not
women.
uncommon at all. And it was like, if I hadn't been in so much pain, I'd have probably started quoting things to him. But I was just like, and
I'm going to not eat for 5 days. I'm going to make my own stem cells. Thank you very much. He has
yeah,
to
pretty
fall
much. I
off
mean,
his chair.
came home and yeah, it was, yeah, it was miraculous, but it really did teach me the power of what the body can do if you
Yeah.
create the right environment
And I
for it.
think things need to be balanced. Like if my patients are in their like late 60s, 70s, and they need a cortisone injection, I'm like, well,
Yeah,
that joint doesn't,
fine.
let's be honest, that joint doesn't need to be around for like 40 decades
No.
still. But when you're your age and you're active, the cortisone injections, they do have side effects. And I think it's just about balancing out and making a decision. There's no judgment if you want the cortisone
No.
injection because you have a trip
Well,
or
I
whatever.
I had 2 months to wait. It was like, what do I want to do for
Yeah,
2 months?
exactly. Yeah.
So it
Yeah.
was like, right, I just need to get priority. I mean, if he'd said I can do it for you right now, I might have gone, yeah, please stop this pain.
Yes,
But
exactly. Yeah.
but he didn't, and maybe that was the best favor he could have
I
done.
know, because now this actually worked for you, which
I,
is
I
amazing.
know, because actually sitting here in the cold light of day, somebody said I'm not going to eat till Friday. I was like, oh, really? Okay,
Yeah.
help.
Why would I do that?
Why would I do that? But actually, at the time, yeah, it was just bang on perfect and gave me such incredible results. And I do believe it would probably give anybody the same results, because physiologically what your body does is it gets busy making stem cells. So then I just used the stem cells and just
Yeah.
took the inflammation down and felt so much better for it. So yeah, really, really fascinating.
Good
Um,
test for you to do as well.
I know. Well, I felt like I'd tested the others. I'd done 24, I'd done
Mm.
36, I did 48 by accident. I was actually trying to do a 3-day, but Nigel went, we're going out for dinner. I went, no, 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 no,
No.
I'm day 2 of 3. And he just looked so heartbroken. It was like, oh, okay,
Fine, I will eat.
I'll go out for 3. Yeah.
But I think the beautiful thing, it is so flexible. Like it
So
is really,
flexible.
really flexible. And it works. It really does work. But I
Mm.
think some women they get quite frustrated because for women, like for men, the results are very, very, very fast.
Yeah.
Like Debbie said, they've got a testosterone that pulses every
Up,
15
up,
minutes.
up.
We are
Yeah.
very, very different. And if your liver is kind of sluggish, it's going to take sometimes months before you actually see some of the
Yeah.
benefits. But do also know that if you're doing this for weight loss or anything, like there's so many benefits to it. Like
And it's
just think
quick.
of like, yeah, like just think Pac-Man is coming out and cleaning you out.
Yeah.
It sometimes can take months before your body finds that balance and can actually start detoxing and methylating and things like that. So try not to
And
be
supplements, I mean, I get asked about supplements
Mm.
a lot, and I get it. I when I first went into menopause, I had everything. I I had sage, I had maca, like my cupboard was just full of
Yeah,
absolutely anything that could have helped. And the reality was nothing was helping, because like within my body, the cortisol was high, insulin was high, I wasn't coping with things well, and I had to get the foundations right.
yeah,
Supplements are amazing if you're
yeah,
going to give them to help your body methylate or to shift pathways for the estrogen detox. So there's definitely a case for some really, really good supplements.
yeah,
Um, but if you think without changing any of the foundations and the lifestyle stuff, the answer either lies in medication or supplements, then the bad news, guys, is it doesn't.
no,
We all have to put in the work.
yeah,
And if we put in the work, then the things that we can add into that are amazing.
yeah,
But yeah, there's those B vitamins are not magic pills. They can't do everything for
no.
you. You
I
have
s-
to
Yeah,
do.
I see it a lot with people who want probiotics, and I'm like, you've got to change the lifestyle because
You've got to
you're
clean
just
up the gut.
chucking some bacteria. It has nothing to grab hold of. It has nothing
No.
to actually replicate because your gut
Yeah.
microbiome, there's just nothing there. Like you have to change the terrain. You can't just
Yeah.
slap a
Yeah.
probiotic on there and think it out of a, out of a tub that you think that's going to do miracles. So, they are good. The brand matters, how it's made, how it's produced matters, but it also, like, you need the terrain and the body and the the insides to actually make this stuff work as well.
Yeah, the lifestyle stuff, the foundations are key. I mean, it was like the way you introduced me. It was like I've toyed between being a menopause expert, just a fasting expert. But honestly, it's lifestyle.
Yeah.
Like the magic of what I do lays in lifestyle coaching and getting the foundations right for everybody, and so that we're living the healthiest life we can in the simplest possible way.
And also, just as we are both chiropractors, I mean, one of the fundamental things too is the nervous system. Like, if you're not getting adjusted, please find yourself a chiropractor. Like, get that nervous system balanced out.
Two
Make sure your
systems.
spine moves.
Yeah, so the nervous system and the hormone system, they control us. Get those two systems right, your body will be amazing. Like, I mean, you can't be out of balance if those two systems
No, but it's interesting. Like, I listen to, quite a few biohackers and people who are into aging and longevity and things like that. And I'm just like, you're missing the neurology, you're missing the nervous system, you're missing the chiropractor. Because this is, our physical body is your vessel. And it holds on to, your brain, your nervous system. And without it, you can't wire and fire. So I mean, that's an add-on.
Well, it is.
But it's such a missing link to healthcare. I just don't get it. I'm like, have they checked your spine?
No, I know.
It's not moving so hot.
Yeah, and and then that interferes with the nervous system, and it's like then you get rubbish information in the brain goes, oh, that was a bit rubbish, I'll just send a rubbish message back out there again, and you're just on a very negative loop.
Anyway,
oh my goodness, we could talk all day.
Couldn't we just? Anyway, I want to thank you so much. I'll catch you for a coffee soon one day after you move. But I just want to thank you so much for all your advice and expertise in this. We will put all of Debbie's contact details in the show notes. Please get in touch with her if you want to either order a Dutch test for yourself. She can help you out with that and go through it with you, tell you what you need to do to get your life back on track if you're feeling a little bit lost. Also, she can guide you through a fasting lifestyle. Please get Dr. Mindy Pell's book. She is amazing. I said she's a chiropractor, so she is in the same paradigm as us, just trying to be healthy and as natural as possible.
Yes. So these are her two books, just to give her a shout out. Eat Like a Girl, that's the new one you're going to be unwrapping, and this one. So honestly, these two can completely and utterly change your life. And yes, I'll give you the information on how to get a hold of me. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And I will catch you soon.